Hello YouTubers, my name is Frederick Lopez. You're in a special segment of PCDC and Movie Review. PCDC, I talk about anything and everything DC Comics, and Movie Review, I review a movie. So today, I'm going to be going over the highly anticipated adaptation of Batman the Killing Joke. It's based upon a graphic novel of the same name called Batman the Killing Joke by Alan Moore. This is considered the definitive Joker story and one of the most highly acclaimed Batman stories. It came out along the time of Batman Year One, Dark Knight Returns, and Watchmen during the 80s. There's a quote from Tim Burton, the filmmaker. "I love The Killing Joke. It's my favorite. It's the first comic I ever loved." Tim Burton. So, how does a movie hold up? Well, I'm going to give my thoughts. But first, cast and crew. Batman the Killing Joke stars Kevin Conroy as Bruce Wayne Batman, Mark Hamill as the Joker, Tara Strong as Barbara Gordon / Batgirl, Ray Wise as Commissioner Gordon, John DiMaggio as Francesco, Robin Atkin Downes as Detective Bullock, and Brian George as Alfred. Sam Liu also directs the film. So yeah, it pretty much reunites most of the Batman animated series cast with Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill, and Tara Strong as the roles of Batman, Joker, and Batgirl, Barbara Gordon. And the animation is a little bit like the Batman animated series animation to some regard, especially with Batgirl. But it kind of lacks that Art Deco vibe of the city. It's kind of more of a modernized city, and there's a lot of computer CGI with the vehicles during chase sequences and with the Batmobile and motorcycle Batgirls. So the film is pretty much almost exactly like the graphic novel. It's very, very faithful to a degree, except for the first 30 minutes. But the main story is pretty much over the Joker's origin. And we get to see glimpses of that through flashbacks, but the majority of it starts off with the Joker escaping Arkham Asylum, and he terrorizes the Gordon family. Commissioner Gordon and Barbara Gordon have family night, and she's waiting for her friend Colleen to arrive so they can go to yoga practice. And then she answers the door thinking it's her friend and it's Joker, and he shoots her in the spine, paralyzing her, and then they kidnap Commissioner Gordon. And he wants to prove that it just takes one bad day for someone to snap. One bad day to reduce the most sanest man to lunacy. So he basically kidnaps Gordon and tries to break him, and he wants to set up a trap for the Batman. Now, Batman and Joker have reached that point in their lives where it's going to end up with one of them killing each other. And Batman kind of wants to stop it. He knows it's the inevitable end. And it's really great seeing the dichotomy between Joker and Batman, and then also their approaches to what one bad day can do, and what happens when like the most bad and evil thing happens, if it breaks a person or will the person keep on fighting. So there's a lot of themes there. But the first 30 minutes, most of the cons I have with this film are actually with the beginning, and a little bit less so with the adaptation part of the actual Killing Joke. Now, the opening pretty much starts off with Barbara Gordon. We get to see a backstory of Batgirl and Batman fighting this criminal called Paris Francesco, Paris Franz. And it's very interesting. It adds a lot more. That part was in the graphic novel, but I don't know if it was really needed in this film. And maybe it's just my bias, because I've actually seen a better backstory called Batman: A Matter of Family in the Arkham Knight DLC, in which we see Batgirl face against Harley Quinn and Joker before she gets shot. And it kind of sets it up. This one's more so, I could kind of see how it sets up Batgirl being attacked and Batman worrying about her and why he would go after the Joker. But the part where it draws the line for me is there's an infamous, alluded to sex scene between Barbara Gordon and Batman. And he wants her to stop fighting crime. He's worried that she's going to get hurt, wants her to stop, and they get into a fight, and then they just quickly have sex. He grabs her ass, she takes off her shirt, and the gargoyle's watching, right? I kind of had a problem with that, okay? And it's lately in the Batman incarnations, I had a problem with her ending up with Tim Drake in Arkham Knight. And then now with Batman, that just felt wrong, not only with the age difference and him knowing her father, but it just felt out of place and not needed. I know they try to give motivation for her character and make her more of a character and make her feel sorry when she gets attacked, but I feel like if he was just a mentor to her, kind of like Robin, that you would have felt sorry already. And it just ruins that whole thing between her and Richard Grayson in the comics. You won't have that scene after she was paralyzed where they're on the trapeze thing together. That was touching, and this just felt wrong. It felt like it was out of place and not needed. And I mean, I didn't throw that much of a fit. I liked the movie with it still there, but that part just bothered me. And I feel like you would have got the point across and you feeling sorry for her if you just had them as allies instead of lovers to a degree. And you would have felt Batman going after the Joker and his motivations already enough with the story that they had. You didn't need to have him basically have sex with her in order for you to let him feel rage against the Joker. It would have been more so of like her getting paralyzed and him not stopping the Joker. This man that he has so many chances of stopping that he didn't stop him this time, and somebody he cared for like a child, like a daughter, gets hurt really badly. That would have been a little bit more powerful, like the actual story, than to have them be sort of lovers. And maybe that's just a Bruce Timm thing with the whole Return of the Joker stuff and New Adventures of Batman, but I really didn't like it as much, and it really brought the film down. And then Paris France, it just didn't match up to the Killing Joke. The thing I liked about Matter of the Family is it added with the fight with the Joker, and then another reason why he may attack the Gordons. Not necessarily that he knew she was Batgirl, but just like, hey, I'm going to start going after the people who are going after me, you know? And maybe there would have been something extra you would have found out about the Joker before that. Or they could have added that he found out who she was. Something like that would have added a lot more emotional weight. It just feels like it's disjointed and that there's two different movies. It almost would have been better if they just like explored the flashback stuff and a little bit more of Batman trying to find where Gordon's being kept from the Joker, and it probably would have been a much longer, more thrilling film. But at 77 minutes, it could have been 45 and I would have been fine with it, but I like the film as is. It's just that beginning, even though it's good, I think, it just feels out of place and it feels like they put another film on top of it. But it just felt out of place for me, and it was just too disjointed. It was almost like when you watch Focus and the first half is like really good, but that almost feels like it's like another film compared to the second half. It's a good portion they added, but it's not enough for me to really care, and doesn't really tie into the Killing Joke, except for like maybe Barbara Gordon being in trouble with her lifestyle, but it just doesn't make sense since she already quit it. It just doesn't make sense since she quit being Batgirl that it would add to the story of her getting shot. Like, I feel like if she was still Batgirl and that just happened during her time off, that would have been more powerful. And they could just expand on the Killing Joke stuff. It just didn't jive for me. Now, I didn't absolutely hate it, and it didn't kill the film for me, but it really brought it down. It wasn't boring. It was just like, what did this really accomplish, and why was this needed for the other half of the story? Now, the other half of the story, the Killing Joke part of it, was damn good. My only con is that even though they had the same dialogue, certain things did not translate well on screen as much as I thought it would. Some of it was just a little bit off. It wasn't the voices at all, like Batman Year One. It was more visually, it was a little bit off. I didn't like the Joker's hairstyle, it just looked odd. Some of the animation looked a little bit weird. It did look like Brian Bolland's work, and I really respect that, especially with Batman. He looked just like Brian Bolland's Batman. The Joker looked a little bit different, and then some of the other stuff was good. It was a more stylized animated series version of Brian Bolland's work, but I did respect that. But yeah, it certain transitions between the flashbacks and the present day stuff really did not work as cool as it did in the graphic novel. They would do match by match scenes, so like the only one that they really had in the movie is when he was thinking about talking to his wife when he was a comedian, and he's looking at the fortune teller lady, or like the fat lady sings thing, and you see a reflection, you see the woman, the fortune teller woman, his hand there, and then it's like to him talking to his wife, and you see the mirror. It's a match shot. It's pretty cool. Other stuff just doesn't match. There's a scene where it goes to the Ace Chemicals part, and he's breaking in there as the Red Hood with the mob. And in the graphic novel, you get to see him as the Joker. After he talks to Gordon, he's in the carnival, and you see him looking down at a puddle, and then it cuts to a flashback of him at Ace Chemical with the mob looking down at a puddle. And in the movie, they cut it to Ace Chemical in a setting. And it's good to set up settings before a scene, but it just didn't... It just felt like it was just plopped in there. There wasn't a natural transition between the flashback portions and the regular part of the film. So I had a problem with that. And then, this is just me. It's rated R. It earns that. but there isn't as much of the nudity, especially with Gordon or Barbara Gordon during those horrific picture parts. You didn't see that. And then some of the other stuff with blood. There was blood, but it just wasn't as much as a graphic novel. And that kind of bothered me because I wanted a little bit more faithful adaptation. And it just upsets me because they couldn't have that, but they could have Barbara Gordon and Batman have a sex scene. I mean, they didn't show it, they alluded to it, but still, I'm like, it would have been better if you just put the other stuff and made it more horrific and really went there with the Joker, especially given Mark Hamill's performance. Now, let me get to Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy. Damn. Mark Hamill gives a most superb performance as well as Kevin Conroy in this. It's among his best performances, and wow. It's just a dream come true to actually hear Mark Hamill's voice say this dialogue, like for real in a cartoon film, instead of at comic conventions. It's really well done, but sadly, you could tell that Conroy and Hamill are getting up there in age and maybe have had some vocal restrictions with their age and playing the characters for such a long time. You can definitely tell they're getting older, which is sad, but I'm glad that they were able to do this still when they were in their prime high, able to do the voices. It was nice hearing it, but definitely compared to like Return of the Joker, the animated series, Phantasm, or even the Arkham games, you can tell it's just a little bit older and more worn out on the voices than previous incarnations. The artwork, it's not as bad, actually. Like I said, it's like Brian Bolland's work, but maybe it's because some people saw it on theater screen, so it looked worse, but it actually looked really good, I thought. I really thought so. There's certain differences, just minor differences besides that, how he acted when the wife died, or like the fight scene they had. There's a little bit more of a fight in the third act when Batman arrives at the carnival place than they had in the other one. But the ending's almost pretty much the same, especially it's just like, I'm going to rehabilitate you, we can change, we can bring you back, and then Joker's just like, it's too late for that. And I love that moment between them. I loved it in the graphic novel, and I love it in this. But in the graphic novel, it shares an ambiguous ending, but in the graphic novel, they both stop laughing, the police lights turn off, you don't know what happened, if he killed him, if he got taken away, what? This one, Joker stops laughing and Batman laughs, and then you just hear the rain and the credits. So it's ambiguous, but we're to assume that Batman killed him. Or maybe they both died, hence being the killing joke. Either way, it's still ambiguous. It's going to be talked about for many years, but it kind of alluded to Batman killing him. And then it has an added scene. There's a little bit of the credits, and then you get to see Barbara Gordon as Oracle. That was a nice touch, I thought. The only thing that was missing was that one little story about the guy killing Batman, and him getting his brains blown out. That little short story segment at the end was not in the film, in an after credit scene or anything. And then also, you didn't get to see the Penguin when Batman was trying to look for the Joker. I really thought that would have been a nice touch, but you didn't get to see that. But overall, there's just little changes. But the beginning... Now, see, a lot of people are split on this. They like it or they just absolutely hate it. And it was a little underwhelming, the film, but it did have a faithful adaptation to the graphic novel and the Killing Joke portion. And because of that, I feel it's a little bit better with the voice work than Year One. And I put it above Year One, but maybe below Dark Knight Returns. It's just the way that it was translated. It was just kind of like plopped together, and even though it had a flow, it just wasn't... They didn't do anything different to make it more cinematic or just... have it more like the film. Like Dark Knight Returns was the same as a graphic novel, but there are certain things they added in there, or just the way that they edited it between the scenes that made it more cinematic and flow better. Where this one was just kind of like, okay, checklist of scene by scene by scene, and then there we go. They could have just added a little bit more. But the beginning, I feel like is a totally different film. And I've seen some of the Barbara Gordon stuff, backstory before she gets shot, done better in other incarnations. So... because of that, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. And then I'm going to still give it a 4 out of 5. It should really be a 3 or a 3.5. But Hamill and Connor were really great, and the Joker stuff and the Killing Joke portions were done really well. So it's still a 4 out of 5. And then if I have to give it a letter grade, I'd probably give it a high B. A B or a B+, because it's still a well-made film. It's just a little bit more underwhelming, and... this really should have been a better film, I thought. I didn't hate it, but if you want the full experience, read the graphic novel. This gets a perfect score. And it's hard doing adaptations, but this just feels a little bit... It feels like it could have been much more, given the cast and everything. And it's the first rated R DC film, animated film, and that's awesome, but I feel like they really could have gone there and just gone like HBO Spawn level of R. Now maybe I just wanted more, but yeah. It's nice having Kevin Conner and Mark Hamill back, but I feel like they could have done much more given the story and maybe adapted it more. Now it did adapt it too close to the graphic novel, but I liked that because it did it in a way where these voices where you kind of had to. I would have been mad if they didn't, you know? But it's just certain stuff at the beginning and the way they added that just really took me out of it a bit. I feel like it wasn't necessary. Given the history of Batman, how many Robins there have been, Barbara Gordon and the history she's had as Batgirl, you didn't need all that extra stuff to make us feel sorry for her, for the feminist or whatever for her character. She was already a strong character. And this bad thing happened to her. And then Gordon was tested. So I feel like everything that they try to do, I can understand where they were going with, but you already had everything throughout the history of the Batman mythos at the beginning of the graphic novel. And I feel like they could have done a little bit more to tie it into the Killing Joke and maybe explored a bit more of the flashbacks. The flashback parts were done really well. They had the color tone of that sepia tone look to it for the flashbacks all 1930s, and it was nice hearing Mark Hamill as the comedian before the Joker, and that was great and tragic as well. And then everything with the Red Hood. And but this would be good to watch before Batman Under the Red Hood, most definitely. But yeah, 7 out of 10, 4 out of 5 still, and then I give it a B. Well, that's it for my Batman Killing Joke review. Be sure to check out my Suicide Squad review this weekend. And then, on the final cut, I will be having my retrospective review of Scream, in which I will ask you, what's your favorite scary movie? Till next time, guys.